Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Florida 4-H Online. We'll be starting in just a moment. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 4-H University Online. We will be starting shortly. We are waiting for a few of our hosts who are just finishing up a state council meeting. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for 4-H University Online. We will be with you shortly.
Good evening and welcome to Florida 4-H University Online. We're excited to have our 4-H family joining us tonight. My name is Lydia Ducanis and I'm your State Secretary for Florida 4-H and the 2020 4-H University Committee Chair. Our 4-HU committee has been working all year to put together an amazing conference. We normally would be sitting in the Grand Ballroom at the University of Florida right now, but with COVID, we shifted our plans. And while we're disappointed we couldn't be together at Gainesville, I'm so happy we can be together on this new virtual platform. When we meet in person, we always say the Pledge of Allegiance and recite our 4-H pledge. I invite you to join Hunter Williams, State Sergeant at Arms, as we say our pledges. Thank you, Hunter. This week we'll have a special guest joining us right here on Florida 4-H Facebook page for 4-HU. Please join me as we welcome Dr. Nick Place, UF IFAS Dean for Extension.
Well, hello, and welcome to University of Florida 4-H University. And I'm Nick Place, and Dean and Director for the University of Florida IFAS Extension. And very glad to provide you with a welcome from our Extension program. The first thing I say is this has certainly been a really unprecedented time for all of us, and has caused a lot of changes in regards to how we do our business, including how we are doing 4-H University this year. I am very appreciative of all of those who have worked so hard to make this happen and to pull this off in this virtual setting. And I'm appreciative of all of you being here and taking part, even though we don't have the opportunity to meet face-to-face here on campus like we typically do. I also want to say, too, that 4-H is alive and well and doing extremely tremendous things through this unprecedented time that we're in. We've pretty much moved all of our programs to the virtual settings since March, when all of this has happened. We're seeing virtual camps, we're seeing virtual programs, virtual 4-H club meetings, a whole host of things like that. And, you know, it has really not held us back. It has not reduced our efforts at all. We're still seeing great participation. In fact, we're even seeing participation in multiple other areas that we have not before. We're seeing people from other states getting involved in Florida 4-H programs, and we're seeing people who had not participated in 4-H now getting involved because of the new settings that we have available to us and going through the virtual format. So we're really proud about that. We're proud about all of the agents and volunteers who have adjusted things and pivoted programs in order to make 4-H what it is. Speaking of 4-H, just to let you know, we have over 200,000 young people here in the state of Florida involved in the Florida 4-H program, and that is supported by over 15,000 volunteers. And when you think about those numbers, they're incredible. But I'm also really proud of the efforts of our faculty and staff that we have here at the University of Florida that really provide the foundational support for 4-H and provide the curriculum and training and support that is needed. And that provides the overall programs that we all benefit from across the state through 4-H. You know, 4-H is a real integral part of our UF IFAS Extension program here at the University of Florida. And we see it as our premier youth development program. It's how we bring the latest research and knowledge out to the youth and help them in problem solving and decision making and life skill development. And 4-H is the kind of thing that makes a tremendous difference in the lives of lots of people. In fact, I'm a product of 4-H, and I can tell you that 4-H has helped to shape me into the person that I am today. And frankly, I would not be here today with you if it were not for all of the things that I have appreciated and grown from 4-H throughout my many years, going back to being a longtime 4-H member, from Pennsylvania many years ago. So with all of those things said, 4-H is alive and well. We're really proud of the efforts that we're making, and we're really glad to have you here as part of this new 4-H virtual university. I'd encourage you to think about all of the different opportunities that are coming available to you now through virtual 4-H University, and take advantage of all these opportunities. And last but not least, thanks for all that you do. And I want to also encourage you and challenge you to make use of all of these opportunities through 4-H so that we can make the best better. Thank you all, and go Gators.
Thank you, Dr. Place. I heard we had more than 1,800 participants in 4-H Adventures online summer program from over 25 states and Puerto Rico. It's pretty cool that we can reach so many people through 4-H. We also want to say thank you to our community partners who made this week possible each year. Thank you Farm Credit, Farm Bureau, Fresh from Florida, the UF College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, and the many individuals who support 4-H through the Florida 4-H Foundation. Now let's talk about our guest speaker. First, according to real life actual statistics from important people who know lots of math and stuff, 87% of people listening to a bio tune out by, well, as soon as the bio starts. I can spout all sorts of boring facts about our speaker. For instance, he wrote a book, spoke at a TEDx conference, and he's been on TV and radio shows like The Tyra Banks Show, WLS Radio, The Today Show, and Jane the Virgin. But most of you have already tuned me out by now, because who cares about the bios? Let's just let this guy talk for a few minutes and see if he's worth a listen. Give a warm Florida 4-H welcome to Johan Khalilian.
I don't know if you guys have felt this, but when you go outside, it feels like it's a really bad movie. And while I'm on lockdown, in my house, it's a Christmas movie. I'm talking about Home Alone. Elf, It's a Wonderful Life. I need another one. What's another one? Miracle on 34th Street. So far, 2020 has been a tough year. It's one of those years where you feel like, man, I just need to catch a break. And have you ever felt that way? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's that feeling where you work so hard for something and then in an instant, it's snatched away. For example, you finally muster up the courage to ask your crush out on a date. They say yes, you're all set up to go to prom with the love of your life. You pick out your outfit, you rent a Maserati to cruise in, and then a pandemic hits. Now, maybe 4 months ago, this example would have been cheesy. I mean, you would have looked at me and said, that's nuts, like that would never happen, but how about now? See, if we weren't currently living this insane reality, you might have thought that was a bad plot to a low-budget film on Netflix. Pandemic Prom Night, starring Zac Efron and the cast of Sharknado. I mean, you guys can picture it, right? In a world where prom reigns supreme, one boy, one girl will be at home playing safe instead of going to their prom. They don't my voice. They don't want to be crowned with this corona. And I wish this was just a plot to a bad movie, but it isn't. It is our current reality. In the blink of an eye, our whole life has shifted. Instead of hanging out with friends, you guys are social distancing from your classmates. Instead of going to prom, I mean, word on the street is you guys won't even be having a prom. And you may be asking yourself, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, you may be saying life, it's just not fair. You may be thinking, why is this happening to us? See, what if I told you that we have a choice in how we view the most difficult, hard to explain, painful moments of life? And I'll say it again, we have a choice in how we view the most difficult, hard to explain, painful moments of life. See, 2020 hasn't been an easy year for you guys. You've experienced some of the most difficult moments of your young life. There's been tremendous loss this year. You've experienced hard to answer questions. You've gone through pain that will shape you forever. And what I want to be clear with today is that we can go through the most difficult, hard to explain, painful moments of life and ask, why is this happening to me? Or we can ask the question, why is this happening for me? And don't get me wrong, this type of posture for life It is not easy, but most life-changing things aren't easy. Which brings me to growing up in Chicago, best city in the world, but I'm not biased. Some of you may be watching The Last Dance. If you aren't, it's a documentary that revolves around a guy named Michael Jeffrey Jordan and the championship run of the 97-98 Chicago Bulls, the greatest team of all time. But I ain't here to argue with you. Also, it ain't easy to argue with a dude while he's in quarantine in his house in Los Angeles. What you gonna do? If you wanna argue, hit me up, DM, Johan Speaks, let's do this. And as a little guy, I loved Michael Jordan. I'm talking about my whole life revolved around wanting to be like him. I picked up the basketball for the first time when I was 10 years old, and I just fell in love with the game. My only problem was I was short. I was really, really short, like mini-me type short. I was so short that people would always block my shot, so I learned how to shoot. I mean, from very far away as you could think from the basket, and that was my specialty. Every single day I'd go out and I'd shoot hundreds of jump shots. I became so good that I got recruited to play high school basketball, which was a pretty big deal for me. There was only one problem. I was still short. Very, very short. I'm talking about like Kevin Hart short. I was 5'2" my freshman year of high school, and people would always say, you're never gonna make varsity if you don't grow. And that made me mad because they said, you know, you're a good shooter, but you need height to get to that next level. And from that point forward, I was determined to grow. I would do everything that I could. I mean, I would hang from pull-up bars. I would just like jump up and jump down just randomly. I would try to touch really high ceilings. I would ask friends to like grab my arms, other friends to grab my feet and just like stretch me out in hopes that I would grow. And none of it worked. I mean, I was still short, really, really short, like the dude from Game of Thrones short. And then it happened. The moment that changed everything. My PE teacher gave me a piece of wisdom that changed my life forever. One day during class, he said, we grow while we sleep. And if we want to grow to our maximum potential, then we need to sleep 8 to 9 hours a night. You best believe that was my new religion, sleepyanity. That doesn't sound right, does it? But you guys know what I mean. I slept a lot. My bedroom became my sacred place. I bought a humidifier, one of those sleep masks, got me a noise machine, and I made sure my butt was asleep every night at 10 p.m. Wake up, 7 a.m., 9 hours every night, clockwork. That was me, my life. Let's go. And as you remember, I was 5'2" my freshman year. My sophomore year, I was 5'4", so I grew 2 inches over a summer. Not that bad. My junior year, I was 5'11". I grew 7 inches over a summer, and the religion of snoozianity was in full effect. It still doesn't sound right, huh? The name of my new religion, it doesn't really matter because my faith and hard work, it paid off. I made varsity. I was one of the best players on the team quickly because of my shooting ability. And even into my senior year, I continued to grow. By the time I was in my last year of high school, I was 6'1". Captain of the team, and I was one of the highest scoring players in our conference. I was playing so well that I received a letter to play at the University of Chicago. Now this was my dream come true, but I didn't know what I needed to do next, so I made an appointment with my academic counselor. Her name was Sister Ruth. She was about 187 years old. You know, she had those thick Coke bottle glasses with the chain link attached. I remember walking in with this bravado. You know, I was like a boss, knowing that I slept myself into almost a whole foot of growth over 4 years. There was nothing that could stop me at this point. So I sat down, I handed Sister Ruth the letter. She took a glance, right? She looked at me before putting her glasses on, and as she was reading the letter, I'm just beaming. You know, I'm bouncing off the walls with excitement. I could barely contain myself. She reads a couple times, she glances at me up and down, and I remember like it was yesterday. She finished reading, she folded the letter back up, put it back in the envelope, handed it to me, and she looked at me and she said, "You're never gonna make it. University of Chicago is one of the best schools in the nation when it comes to academics, and you're not smart enough. You may be good in the basketball court, but you can't cut it in the classroom." Now, if my life was a bad B movie, this would be the part where I get up in a state of rage, right? I flip over her desk, I run up to her, I grab a piece of her hair and rip it off of her head. I look at her and I say, "To remember you by." And then I would storm out, slam the door, the glass would shatter. I would look at her dead in her face and say, "Your mama's not smart enough." And then I'd go to the University of Chicago. I'd wear her hair on my shoes as a reminder of who I need to prove wrong and become a star in and out of the classroom. And the name of my bad movie would be Hair Jordan. Hair, not like Hair, Hair Jordan. Man, I'm really bad at names. But unlike what we're going through right now, my life, you see, it didn't feel like a movie. It was pretty normal. I left that room and I asked myself, why is this happening to me? I mean, maybe she's right. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm not smart enough. So I decided to not go to the University of Chicago. See, that's the story of what happened to me. That was me feeling like a victim and nothing ever turns out my way. Why is this happening to me? When I was a senior in high school, trying to make sense of my pain, I wish a man from the future traveled into the past to tell my younger high school self that what just caused me embarrassment and pain didn't happen to me. It happened for me. That the pain is temporary, but it's also a powerful teacher. This man from the future would say, this moment right in front of you, it happened so that you can grow. And this moment right in front of you, it happened so that you could learn how to chase your dreams in the midst of uncertainty. You see, this moment would help me learn how to pick myself up when people knock me down. This moment would help me choose to use my voice to help others find their own voice. It would help me stop blaming the world for all my problems. And as hard as it was to feel and make sense of in the moment, it happened for me. And I know thinking about a man from the future telling me this sounds like another plot to a bad movie, doesn't it? But that's my life right now. I have shared that story across the world, and I invite people into a bigger and better and bolder story for their future. Because what we think is happening to us is really happening for us. I thought that this moment of my life had defeated me. I honestly believed that I wasn't smart enough to make it at the University of Chicago, so I didn't go. I didn't even make an attempt because of what happened to me, right? This victim, how could life do this? I didn't do anything to deserve this. You see, because Sister Ruth was the person who was supposed to help guide and nurture me so that I made the best choice for my life at that point. I felt like I couldn't catch a break. I look at my life and I'm like, I'm this kid from a poor part of Chicago. My parents were divorced when I was a little guy. I grew up around addicts. I went to school in fear of my life. I didn't even know if I would make it to the age of 18. So much of my life was happening to me. I didn't choose any of it. It wasn't until later in life that I realized, see, all of this stuff that was so negative, it didn't happen to me. It actually happened for me. See, what I've learned is that our moments of pain can turn into our greatest lessons. The people who we think broke our heart actually can teach us how to love. The loved ones that we've lost, they teach us how to grieve and live life to the fullest. You see, because you can look at it and say, why did this happen to us? Or you could understand that, you know what you guys are doing? You're making it happen. Nothing can get in the way of your dreams. Nothing can get in the way of the life that you want. This moment isn't happening to you, it is happening for you. Yes, even the most painful losses are for us. You have had a difficult, hard to explain, painful year, and I'm not here to tell you to act like it hasn't hurt you or you need to see the bright side of things. I'm not here to say it's easy. What I'm here to say is I've traveled here from the future. As a man who has lost people he's loved, who had people like Sister Ruth knock him down, who's grown up around addiction and violence and the difficult, hard to explain, painful moments of life, they don't happen to us. They happen for us. I'm gonna say it again. It didn't happen to you. It happened for you. You will grow. You will learn, you will get stronger, you will persevere, you will adapt, you will tell this story for the rest of your life.
Johan, we have a
Hey,
question
guys.
for you. Oh, pardon. Hello. Thank you so much for talking to us today. We have a
Thanks for having
question
me.
for you from Hayden. At what point in your life did you come to find that things were happening for you instead of to you? And what spurred that change in thought?
You know, that's one of those things that I think it wasn't like it was this one big moment where you get like the light bulb above your head type of thing, where it was gradual. And I remember when I would speak and I would share this story about Sister Ruth, I would get this question where people would say, but like, do you think if that didn't happen to you, if she didn't say that, if you ended up not going to that, school, do you think you would have become a speaker? And at first I would just kind of like brush it aside. And it was one of those things where you're like, well, I don't know, like, how am I supposed to know that? And the more I thought about it, the more I sat in it, I realized even the gift of these moments where someone who is attempting to knock you down can set you on a path to find this thing that you dedicate your life to. And that's exactly what happened to me. So for me, as as a young adult in my 20s, early on, I still felt like this was happening to me. But the more I would speak and live in my story, I started to realize, and that's where I would say that the shift started to happen, where I was like, maybe I wouldn't be living this life if it wasn't for that painful moment. Maybe if it wasn't for her attempting to knock me down, I wouldn't have found this path or even like wanted to be a voice for people, because she was such a spiteful voice. Part of what I dedicated my own life to is like, I got to make sure that I don't use my voice in that same exact way. And I think what I'm realizing now, even as I get older, I have to continually choose this way of looking at the world. Like, it's not like it happened and then I'm done. There's parts of me that still want to go back to like a victim-y, blaming way of living, and finding folks that do me wrong, or even, blaming things on government right now, or blaming things, on specific people in my life, systems. I mean, you name it. It's easy to look at the world and look at people in our lives and say, you did this to me, instead of asking, well, how can I take ownership? How can I take personal responsibility? And as now I'm 40 years old now, so it's been a long time. And I think through wisdom, I've realized this is something that I have to put on every day, is constantly asking myself that question when something painful is happening, when something that I feel like I can't handle is happening. I just keep asking myself that question. Okay, so this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. So why is it happening for me? How can I learn? How can I grow? How can this help me shift as a human being?
Thank you, Johan, for that amazing answer. We have another viewer, Benjamin, wanting to know, what do you like most about speaking to groups, and how did you get started as a speaker?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I got, I'll tell you this feels like funny to me, right? So here we are right now, Taylor, it's just, you're the only person that I could see. And when I first started, oh, there you go. There's, well, and this is the thing, is like, when I first got started speaking, right, I never thought that we'd be here, right? Like, part of me is like, well, I didn't sign up for this. And that's exactly, what we're talking about is, for me, the big thing that I wanted to step into is like, how can I connect? Like, how can I create meaning in the midst of life? How can I lead? I always wanted leaders when I was your age. And I always felt like that I didn't have a mentor. I'm from the inner city of Chicago, and felt like there was nobody who can give me insight into how to live my life. And even here we are talking through these screens. And part of it is like, how do we make sense of this? Like, where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? And so a big part of why I wanted to do this is for moments like this, because I didn't have it when I was growing up. So how can I provide a sense of leadership and insight and direction and guidance for you guys when you need it most? And during my life as a speaker, there's been so many different lessons, so many different insights. And the thing that started me that started me off was I started for 4 years speaking in classrooms. And then I had an opportunity to be on the Tyra Banks show. And from the Tyra Banks show, I had an opportunity to be on the Today Show, and there was a whole bunch of media outlets. And then I had an opportunity to speak at my first conference. And then from there, I had my first opportunity to speak in New Mexico, which was my first time really like speaking outside of Chicago. And then I did a whole tour, and it was like snowballing, you know? But it all started really in a classroom of 15 students. And then from there, I started to do live in-person, bigger assemblies. And I remember the first big assembly that I did was about 1,500 students. So it went from 15 kids to 1,500. And that was like about 4.5 years later.
Thank you, Johan, for your insight. Our last question is from Shelby. Shelby wants to know, what lesson should we look for in each situation? Or maybe, what do we have to learn or take away from every experience?
Yeah, well, let me see if I understand the question. Because I don't think there's one takeaway that I could just give you guys, but I think the whole point of my talk is for you to ask that question as you go through life and as you experience the things that are maybe hurting you or hard to explain, like we talked about. Can you sit down and truthfully ask the question, like, how is this happening? You know, why is this happening for me? So I'll give you an example. I actually have a friend who lives in Vancouver, and yesterday she texted me and she's like, hey, I'm just having a really hard day because last night somebody broke into my house. Somebody broke into my house and they took a whole bunch of my stuff, and actually a couple of things that they took were very special to me. And one of them was a little trinket that her mom gave her when she was young. And so we started to talk about this idea, and I was like, hey, you know, are you willing to kind of step in? You know, first we said, let's leave space for you to feel whatever you feel, you know, grieve. So this isn't an invitation to just fake it, right? This isn't like a question that's like, just be positive, just act like nothing ever happened. Really, this is an invitation to say, okay, like in the midst of all this, even though the pain is real, the loss is real, what else is happening? How could this be a moment of growth? How could this be a deeper, more meaningful experience? And so for her, we started to examine that. And the more we poked around, she said, you know, I've always had a strained relationship with my mom. And, you know, her mom is the type of person who like never really accepts, like she doesn't accept the job that she has. And she always feels like there's this, you know, unspoken tension with them and this passive aggressive relationship that they have. And she said, what's so fascinating is that my mom was the first person to call me and console me. And she's like, I cried with my mother. And she's like, I've never felt this vulnerable connection with my mom. Like, and I've waited for that for so long. And then I asked her, I was like, do you think that would have ever happened if it wasn't for somebody breaking into your house? And she's like, you know what? To be honest with you, no. And it's interesting to see, right? Like how this moment where she was violated and something that was precious to her was taken. And what that did was open up an opportunity for her to connect with her mom in a way that she hasn't been able to connect before, at least in her adulthood. And that is the invitation for all of you guys, because it's going to be easy for us to continue to live our life in a way where like, oh, look at this bad thing. I'm a victim. The world is horrible. Everything is burning down, you know, like whatever it is. Or we can kind of shift and understand that even in the midst of those painful moments, there's an opportunity for something beautiful if we have the eyes to see it. If we slow down, feel our feelings, and then actually ask these deeper, more meaningful questions. So that was part of why I wanted to offer it up to you, is that so that you guys have this tool and that you're continually asking yourself this question, no matter what life gives you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Johan. We have another question from Kaylin. As we all navigate this virtual world and with your professional experience, can you share something you've learned about the difference between connecting in person and in a virtual format?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is energy, right? So like, this can feel very cold sometimes. right? There's like, I'm doing the best that I can to connect you guys and to even like create some energy. And so what I do sometimes is like, I try to bump it up a little bit. It's like, okay, how can I be a little bit bigger? How can I, even when I'm, speaking to you guys, Taylor and Lydia specifically, where like I can see your faces. So I'm doing the best that I can to actually like, really, really connect with you and like be like, okay, you guys are my friends. Cause there's just pictures up here and I'm actually sitting up here. This is my my parents' place. I'm over back in Chicago actually right now. I'm doing some work at a camp and I'm in the attic that I grew up in. So I got this virtual background because I was like, at least this would be one of the benefits is like, you guys don't have to see like how bootleg my upstairs attic is. So we get to hide these things, but I think, and then, there's stuff like the chat that is another benefit that we have happening here as well. But I would say the biggest thing is how do we make this as human as possible? Even though we're in a virtual world, right? It's like, do things like, that's another thing that I love too. It's like, I can see, okay, your name is Taylor, your name is Lydia. Like I can toggle over your screen and see. That's another plus is like, how can we do these little things, especially because I'm a person who kind of forgets names from time to time, where we could just connect to the actual person. It's like, what's your name? Oh, Taylor, Lydia, and speak to one another and connect, because it's easy to hide in this virtual world. It's easy to like, just show our picture whenever, but how do we just pop on and do the best that we can to create some energy and to actually connect? I would say it's probably an introvert's dream too. It's a nightmare for us as extroverts because I'm a big time extrovert. I get so much energy like from the crowd and from being with people. But for introverts, this is like, hey, you could be in the comfort of your own home. Like, you could wear pajamas on the bottom. You can, business on top, right? Like, real comfortable on the bottom. And there's a lot of benefits to it too. But I would say those are the biggest things is like, come to these experiences and bring energy. Don't hide. And do all that you can to just really connect. Yeah. And then somebody just sent me a message, but I'm not gonna say anything. Somebody said somebody might have shorts on right now. Do one of you guys have shorts on? Is that what's happening?
That would be me.
That would be you. There we go, my man. So yeah, those would be my primary things is like bring energy to these virtual experiences and don't forego the ability to connect in these virtual experiences, because it can happen here. Like we aren't limited in the ways that we think we are. It can happen here if we're dedicated to actually creating it.
Well, Johan, thank you so much for speaking for us and not to us. I hope Johan's words will resonate with you as you go about your week and the upcoming year. I have a few reminders as we end tonight. Tomorrow, please join us for a night of fun as we watch our talented 4-Hers perform. We think you'll be impressed by their talent. We'll announce the Share the Fun winners, and you'll have the chance to cast your vote for the crowd favorite. We'll also be announcing the winners in competitive events, as well as photography and graphic design contests, so do not miss it. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.